Good afternoon, my magnificent ones. Sue here, your magnificence mentor, and we're back with the healing call of cancer. I'm going to apologize in advance if you hear pounding and banging in the background. My building is under construction and I never quite know when the workers are going to come and go, and so bear with me. If it gets too bad, then I'll shut this off and just record it again. So today, I thought it would be great to focus on the what ifs in life. We start out early thinking about what if, from the time we can understand what our parents are telling us or offering us. So for example, at maybe 3, our parents might say, well, try this vegetable. And our noses wrinkle up because we've never seen this vegetable before. We don't know what it tastes like. And the question pops into our heads, which we can verbalize. Well, what if I don't like it? Well, just try. Well, but what if I don't like it? Well, then you never have to eat it again. I just want you to try it. Oh, okay. So of course, our parents had a plan in advance, right, of how they were going to deal with that. And some parents just said, well, I don't care if you don't like it. Just if it's on your plate, you eat it, whether you like it or not. And others were a little more accommodating and said, well, I just want you to try it. And you don't have to, have one bite. And if you don't like it, carry on. So that's kind of how we proceed in life. And we're faced with lots of what ifs, because let's face it, life is uncertain. There is no recipe for success that works every time. There are no conditions that we can set up that will guarantee the outcome that we want at any point, because too many things can happen. If you're a golfer like me, you know that wind conditions, weather conditions, and the length of the grass, plus the distraction of birds squawking just as you're swinging, can throw off your game and cause a really high score when that wasn't your intention and that wasn't the plan. So life is like that. We're faced with these variables. We're faced with these uncertainties in life that are there for us to deal with and deal with in the best way we possibly can. So nothing raises those what ifs more than a time in our lives when we're facing some kind of adversity, some kind of trauma. I know when I was experiencing some odd physical symptoms, some pain and different things going on in my body, I thought, well, I'll go to the doctor and we'll see what it is. And I didn't really understand what it might be, or didn't think ahead to what it might be. Of course, I didn't want to entertain the worst possible thing that I thought it might be. So I blocked that from my consciousness. And my doctor was, after examining me, was very good to say, well, it could be this, it might be something else. I'm not really sure. So I'm going to schedule you to go and see a specialist. And so that's what I did. And I fretted a little bit about it, wondering, oh, okay, what's the specialist going to say? Well, the specialist made no bones about saying, well, I think it's cancer. And right then I'm in shock. And I didn't know how to deal with it. And at that moment, there were a whole bunch of what ifs that just flooded my very being. Most of those what ifs I had no answers for. And I didn't have a plan either. So it was just there. And the emotion was so raw, it was there to deal with. But at some point, when I was given the treatment protocol, the idea that the medical establishment had for me to get past this tumor that was growing inside me, then there were lots of what ifs. Well, what if I don't do the treatment? What if I choose something else? What if what if it doesn't work? And so there was all of those things spinning around in my head. And I began, because I'm kind of a planner and I like to control as much as I possibly can in my life. Then I thought, okay, well, what's the plan here? What if? Well, if this happens, then what will I do then? So I began to, and one of my questions was, well, I was worried that I wasn't physically capable of dealing with the onslaught of chemo and radiation. And I thought, I don't know if I'm strong enough to withstand that, because I know it's brutal. And so I thought, well, what if I delay that and do what I need to do to get healthier, to get the rest of my body in shape, in a better condition, to shed some weight, to become more physically strong, to put good things in my body, because I hadn't been. And well, what'll happen if I do that? And it seemed like a worthy plan and a worthy thing to take on. So that's what I did. And of course, I delayed the treatment that I was offered at the Cancer Institute for about 6 months, and diligently went after how to get my body in the best shape that I possibly could. And of course, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, well, maybe that will look after the cancer, and then I don't need to deal with any treatment that outside of the direction that I had chosen. And well, of course, it had the desired effect as far as me getting healthy and stronger and ready to face. I felt better than I felt in years, and except that it did not look after the cancer. So, okay, well, that didn't happen. So now what? And well, what if I go back and take the treatment? Well, it could be horrific. And here's when that phrase, what's the worst that could happen? Looking at the scenario from the perspective of, well, what's the worst that can happen? Well, I guess the treatment could kill me. Well, I guess if that happens, then I have no more worries on this plane. And so that's it. Well, what do I need to do in the meantime to either safeguard against that, or to help me get through that, or whatever? And so then these little plans would start to formulate. Well, what if I did this? What if I did that? So there's plan A, plan B, multiple plans. But that's, I don't know if that's the way you roll, but that's the way I roll. Like, I want to know what I can take charge of that's in my realm of control to either soften or mitigate whatever the negative consequences of that action are going to be. And so that's the approach that I took. And I found, for the most part, that worked for me, because otherwise, to get into the fear of, well, what if, and because what if can often seed a fear, like, what if this is really, 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 really bad? Well, what if it is? Then what? Or, well, what if it turns out better than you expect? Then what? Oh, well, I mean, you've probably had these visions in your head, such as I've had, of, well, what if I won the lottery? Well, oh, well, well, the same scenario. Well, how would I plan to deal with that? What would need to occur in order to make that the glorious experience that I'm dreaming that it would be? And are there any downsides to that, and so on? So one of the things that I find is vital when we're facing some kind of adversity is to remember that even though we may turn control over to to people professionals who are there to assist us in one way, shape, or form. We're still in charge. It's still up to us to decide whether we want to go in that direction that they're recommending or not. And to be aware of, well, what if I don't do what they say? Then what? And so it's that back and forth to find some kind of balance between the ideal, well, this is the way I'd rather it would happen, but in reality, maybe that's not quite what's going to work. And so it's to find that point at, so the second question of well, what's the worst that can happen? The second question is, well, can I live with that? And if you can live with that, then there's not the same fear level that we're dealing with, and it's easier to work through it. Well, if I can live with that, then I can make a plan to support that. So what if your worst case scenario is, well, they've told me I have stage 4 cancer and they have no treatment for me, and there's nothing that they can do except do their best to keep me comfortable. So the what if, well, what if I die sooner rather than later? Well, then make a plan. Get your affairs in order. Make sure that you've orchestrated to get as much out of life as you want to in order to face that inevitability, so that when the time comes, there's nothing heartfelt left unsaid. You have your financial affairs in order, or however all that whole scenario works, and you can say, okay, well, if cancer is my journey home, if I'm only going to be on the planet for another however long, then what do I do in the meantime? Am I going to sit here and in self-pity and in fear and guilt and that remorse of, oh, shoulda, woulda, coulda, all the things that you did or didn't do throughout your life? Or are you going to resolve whatever you can and deal with whatever you can? So that's a big what if, right? And I think it's helpful if we approach it from that standpoint, and it can be comforting to our loved ones as well, because they're sitting in a similar kind of fear. Well, what if this takes my parent out? What if they die? Well, maybe a frank discussion with them is one of the best gifts that you can ever give to them. And if you can't discuss it with them frankly, you could write it out. You could write out what's on your mind if you can't find the words. And sometimes I know, especially if it's something really deep inside and very heartfelt that I want to express, I'm much better at putting my words down on paper or on the computer and reorganizing them and, scratching out and adding and subtracting and all of that until I feel as if I have it the way I want to say it. And lots of times that can be a door opener, because let's face it, we're not very good at communicating face to face with one another, oftentimes in the face of dire things going on. It's just like the words get caught in our throats, and maybe the emotion is so strong that we can't be coherent about it. And so then you find a way that well, what if I can't talk to them about this? Well, maybe I could have someone else talk on my behalf. Maybe I could call a family meeting and I have an advocate who can express where I'm coming from and so on. I mean, there's a multitude of ways of doing that. So that's the worst case scenario. And well, can I live with that as the second part of that? Now, if the answer is no, so you're not in a life-threatening scenario and you don't believe, or you are, and they've offered you treatment, well, this might extend your life another a few months or whatever, well, guess what? You're still in the driver's seat. You get to decide whether or not that makes sense to you in light of how you want to deal with that and who you are. I certainly have had family members who got to a certain point in their cancer journey where they just said, no more treatment. I'm just going to live my life to the fullest that I can for whatever time I have left. Help me be as comfortable as possible, but don't offer me anything to extend my life. Because one thing they don't know for sure, even though the doctors will offer you a treatment with the hope that it will extend your lifeline, they don't actually know. They're not God. They have no they have a hope and perhaps a few statistics that demonstrate that maybe this is a possibility. So you need to decide what's right for you, and not and I suppose it's fair to say your loved ones will want to weigh in on this decision, but really I know as a young person the idea of my loved one dying at any time was abhorrent to me. Nobody wants that. And yet it's an inevitability. I mean, we're not getting out of this alive. We're not. And so some will go some way and some will go another. Some of us will go early. Some of us will go live a really long time before we go. And so as children of parents who are aging, we want our parents to stick around for as long as absolutely possible. And sometimes it feels as if it doesn't matter if they have no quality of life or they're suffering, we still want them here. And yet I changed my mind about that. The more years that I have on planet Earth, the more I realize quality of life is really, really important. So at some point we may say, nope, that's not going to give me the quality of life that I'm here for. I'd rather have a shorter, better time than a long, drawn out suffering scenario. So we need to honor that for our loved ones if we're in the supporter seat and not the driver's seat, and say, look, it's your life. It's up to you. You know, will I be sad if things don't work for as long as I'd like them to? Well, yeah, I will. But that's not my decision. That's the decision of my loved one who is suffering with this disease. So the what ifs are big in our lives. And I think one of the most important things is to do what you need to do to feel whatever it is, feel the enormity of it, feel the overwhelm, feel the fear, feel whatever is going on inside you, and then realize it's just a feeling, that the feeling will not take control of you unless you allow it. It won't swamp your boat. It will dissipate. It will move on through once you've acknowledged it and in an odd kind of way embraced it. It's not that you have to like it. You know, I love my fear so much. No, I don't. And yet there are times when that fear has served me very, very well. And so I need my fear to, you know, hang in the background there. But I don't want it to override or rule over what's in my heart to do, what my desire to make decisions for myself and be in the driver's seat. So that's, so dealing with the what ifs with some kind of a plan is the next logical step after you've felt the feelings, you know, that you allow it to. So as an example, when I was sitting in waiting for treatment at one point in my cancer journey, there was a elderly couple sitting not far away, and I could hear their conversation, and I began to understand that this woman's cancer had come back. And I'm horrified, because I'm thinking, what? How would it come back? And so I felt so sorry for this couple, because they had gone into their treatment protocol, I'm sure, with the idea of thinking, well, then the cancer will be dealt with, it'll be gone. But it came back. And I didn't even want to entertain that idea of cancer coming back, because I figured it was horrific enough the first time. So I wasn't even ready to go there. So when the cancer did come back, oh my, I was beyond devastated. And I was just speechless at the time. And I thought, well, now I don't know what to do. Well, of course, they had the option of, the only remaining option to me, other than to not do anything, was to have this radical surgery. And of course, the consequences of that were big for me. And yet I thought, well, if it gives me the quality of life that I know I want, then it's worth the risk. So that's what I did. And you can believe that there were times in my healing journey after that where this little fear, well, what if it comes back a third time? That raised its ugly little head to me, and I'm going, no. Well, there are no guarantees in life, right? But because I was hugely determined at that time to deal with cancer in my body once and for all, and because the surgery had eliminated the the cancer tumor, then I knew I had time. And so then I made a plan to say, okay, what do I need to do to get to the root of this, and how am I going to heal from this so that cancer is no longer an issue in my life? And then took steps toward that. So the beauty of doing that was I was able to set the fear aside and say, no, I'm not focusing on that fear. Is it a possibility? Sure, it's a possibility. I can't read the future, but I'm not allowing that possibility a whole lot of energy. In fact, I'm not really allowing it any energy, because I know, and I guess what I've learned is I'm strong enough to deal with whatever comes my way, no matter what. I'm strong enough for that. I'm magnificent enough that if I get thrown for another great big loop and into a different kind of scenario that's really, really difficult, I'll deal with it. And you have the power to deal with it too. You are every bit as magnificent in that you can handle whatever comes your way. You might need some help to do it, but deep in your core, you are strong enough to get through it. So the what ifs are only there to trigger, okay, well, if that happened, what's the plan? And to move you into action mode and get you to the next step. And I have to say that the role that fear plays in that, I mean, I was scared enough that I listened very intently to the different possibilities for treatment protocols, what else I could do to get my body strong and so on. It was a huge activator for me to stay the course and follow the diet protocol and eliminate various things from my life to facilitate that process. So fear had its place, that's for sure. But what we don't want is we don't want the fear to immobilize us, to succumb to it to the point where we think, I have no choices, I have no options, I have to do this, or I can't do that, and on and on and on. And then our world becomes so small that there's no room to maneuver. So I want you to recognize and acknowledge that you're really strong. And if you're having trouble buying into that, think of other things in your life that you have overcome or moved through because you were strong enough. And I bet there's lots of them. I bet there are many times when you have risen to the occasion and said, well, this is really, really hard, but you got through it. Well, that's resilience. That's built up over time to help you deal with this. So I mean, you know, you're magnificent enough to do this. So if you're in this Cancer boat right now, then take some time to think about the what ifs, and then grab those oars and start rowing towards the kind of life that you deserve to have. Okay, whether or not the cancer is there, whether or not you have 24 hours left to live or 44 years, it doesn't really matter. You have the power, and you're more than your cancer, you're more than your experience, you're more than your body. You have what you need. You honestly do. And you have access to anything else you might need as well. And that's where the hope comes in. So have faith in yourself, cling to that, whatever hope that you can, and you'll get through to the other side, whatever that other side looks like. So that's it for today, the what ifs. If you're finding Healing Call of Cancer of benefit, please share the video. You can find it on YouTube under the rest of them are under Healing Call of Cancer on YouTube, my Sue Paulson channel. You can also subscribe to my app, The Magnificence Mentor, which is a free download from either the Google Store or the iTunes Store. And when you become a member, it opens up all kinds of free videos, articles, and so on, just designed to uplift and inspire you to be your magnificent self and live the best life that you possibly can. Take good care, my friends, and I look forward to seeing you next week.